We have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti Podcast. The past is always overshadowing the present. The past memories, the pleasures, the flattery or insults. The past touches the present and gives it a twist. Hello and welcome to episode 294 of Urgency of Change. The Krishnamurti Podcast features carefully selected extracts from Krishnamurti's recorded talks. Each episode highlights his different approaches to universal and timeless themes that affect our everyday lives, the state of the world, and the future of humanity. This episode's theme is the past. Upcoming themes are challenge, sanity, and activism and social change. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. Please visit our website at kfoundation.org, where you can find a popular collection of quotes, a variety of featured articles, along with a wide selection of curated material in the index of topics. This index allows easy access to book, audio and video extracts. Our online store stocks the best of Krishnamurti's books and ships worldwide. We also offer free downloads, including a selection of booklets. You can also find our regular Krishnamurti quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app. This episode on the past has 3 sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's second talk in New Delhi 1962 and is titled, Can the Past Be Dissolved?
We said that society is the past, and each one of us is the result of the past. He is the result of his environment, of the society he lives in, of the culture in which he has been brought up, the religious propaganda with which he has been inculcated through centuries. He is the result of all that, which is the past. And is it possible to break away from the past totally? The past being not only yesterday, but the many thousand yesterdays. The past, which is the atomic bomb, as well as the tradition of the Hindu, the Christian, the Buddhist, or of the recent religious, social revolutionary who is the communist. The past is not only the tradition, but also the result of that tradition in conjunction with the present, which creates the future. Because for most of us, tradition is very important. We have to understand tradition. There's the tradition of the weaver. There's the tradition of the scientist. There's the tradition of the scholar. There is the tradition of the so-called religious person. The tradition of the technician. Where is one to draw the line between that kind of tradition where technological knowledge is essential to live in this world, and where is it a detriment, a total detriment to a creative mind? I think each one of us should comprehend this problem of tradition. Because tradition is, after all, habit. Habit seasoned in time. And that habit shapes our thought, shapes all our existence, forces you to go to the office, forces you to maintain a family, which evokes responsibility, duty, and habit of morality. And in which is included obedience. All these are, tradition. They compose tradition. They make up tradition. And do I go on? And is tradition, does tradition help to bring about a creative mind? That is the new mind. Or habit prevents the total comprehension of that which is beyond time. There is no good habit and bad habit. All habit is the same. But to free the mind from habit is surely extraordinarily important, because habit is merely a technique, an easy way of living in which not deep thinking is necessary. That's why most of us cultivate habit, which becomes almost automatic, and thereby we needn't exert too much vitality of thought. So we cultivate habit, which gradually, through time, becomes tradition. Now, the whole of that is the past. The past including the ideas, the gods, the various conscious and unconscious influences, the various compulsions and urges, the various accumulations to which we are attached. All that is the past. Not only the accumulated memories of the individual, of the person, but also the accumulated knowledge of humanity, which has been gathered, accumulated through centuries. There is the accumulation in the unconscious, and there is the accumulation in the conscious. The accumulation in the conscious is the present technological education, environmental, social influences of the present. There is also, in the unconscious, the residue of thousands of years of man's endeavor, his knowledge, his hopes, his frustrations, his unexpected demands. All that is the past. The past is you, and there is nothing else but the past. And I think it is very important to understand this. I mean by understanding, not intellectually, not verbally. If you merely assent to what has been said, agree or disagree, and add more in detail to what has been said, verbally, intellectually, then you are not understanding. Because anybody can agree with anything. Can be dissuaded not to agree. But understanding is something entirely different, surely. Understanding comes into being when you give your whole attention not only to the word, but to the meaning of the word, but also to your reaction to those words, and the reaction which is the response of your memory, which is the past. The whole total process of that brings about an understanding. And these talks are not verbal, are not meant to be merely a series of ideas with which you can play. They are meant for those people who are serious, earnest, who are willing or wishing to go to the very end to find out, to the very end. Not to the intellectual barren end of words and theories, but to go to the very end of an idea, of a thought, like the past, and to inquire very deeply into it, and to pursue it to the logically, sanely, rationally, to the very end. Such a person is a serious person who will not be thwarted by any formula. And this evening we are proposing to do that. That is to inquire not only verbally, but also emotionally, to be in contact with the word. You know, there is a difference between mere verbalization and which is not connected with our emotions, with our feelings. There is a division between the idea and the feeling which brings about action. When we divide the idea, separate it from feeling, then there is the contradiction between the feeling and the idea. And most of us spend our time in trying to find out how to bridge between the idea and the action. The idea is merely words. The idea is merely a series of thoughts verbalized. they have no value at all. As you must have observed, every politician throughout the world talks of peace. That is double talk. They talk of peace and prepare for war. They talk of not having position, power, prestige, and they are craving, burning after it. So it is an idea. But we are not dealing with ideas. We are dealing with fact. The fact that action can only come about when there is an emotional contact with the fact. Because I feel that the past can be completely dissolved. And the future, the unknown, is just beyond the wall of the past. But to go beyond, to break through that wall, one has to go very deeply into the question of the past. One cannot go deeply into the whole process of consciousness verbally. One cannot inquire through thought. Thought is not capable of inquiry. Because thought is born of reaction, which is the reaction of memory. Thought is the reaction of memory. And memory is the result of experience. And that experience is the conditioning in which we have been brought up. So thought is not the way to inquire. Thought is not the instrument of questioning, of demanding. So when one realizes that very clearly, sharply, that thought is not the instrument of inquiry, then how is one to inquire? How is one to understand? Please, as I am talking, please listen to find out your own state of mind, the state of your own mind. Do not merely hear the words, but use the words to open the door into your own mind. Because really, what we are doing this evening is the process which opens the door into yourself. We are taking a pilgrimage inwardly. We are taking a journey together into the whole process of the mind. And if you are merely listening to words, then it will have no value. But if you are journeying together, not listening to me, but journeying together, then you will discover for yourself the truth of what is being said, the truth or the falseness of what is being said. And if the intellect is not the instrument of inquiry, and the intellect is not the way that opens the door, then what is the way? I'm using the word the way not as a method, not as a system, a practice, a discipline. Those are all too immature and childish. Doesn't matter who says so. Because a mind that follows a system is a narrow mind, is a limited mind. And a mind that is disciplined, shaped, controlled, ceases to think. So, I am using the word way in the sense, if this is not it, then what is? If thought is not the way to inquire into how to dissolve the past, because thought itself is the past, is the result of the past, and therefore it is incapable of dissolving the past. Then how is the past to be dissolved? I hope I am making myself perfectly clear. The hand that gives cannot at the same time take away. Thought wants to dissolve the past, but yet thought is the result of the past. Every action, every projection, every desire, every volition from the past cannot dissolve it, because it is still of the past. Do what you will, every action, every sacrifice, every movement of the mind is of the past. And thought, do what it will, cannot resolve it. If that is very clear, not merely in agreement, not merely that you agree with what is being said, which is not important at all, but what is important to find out if you can dissolve the past. Because you see, the past can give technique of daily existence. That's the machinery of daily existence the past it can offer. It can facilitate. But it cannot take you very far. And we have to take a journey beyond the past, beyond time. And it is necessary, because that's the only revolution that matters. That's the religious revolution. And such a revolution only can bring about an extraordinary disorder out of this disorder. I'll explain that presently. It is not a contradiction. So, thought under no circumstances offers a way out of the past. Past is necessary. Otherwise you wouldn't know where you live. You wouldn't be able to know what your name is or go to the office, or recognize your wife, your friends, your children, or able to speak. The past is memory. and memory is essential. You cannot put it aside. But the cultivation of memory, which is knowledge, which is the expanse of thought, cannot possibly break down the wall of the past. And therefore the mind is never new, never fresh, never young, innocent. And it is only such a young, fresh, innocent mind that knows humility. Not the mind that is burdened with the past.
The second extract is from the first talk in New York, 1971, and is titled The Movement of the Past.
We're going together look at this question, whether the mind, which has been conditioned through time, conditioned through experience, conditioned by the knowledge it has acquired through that experience, conditioned by religion, to believe and not to believe, Catholic, Protestant, and the innumerable divisions in the Protestantism, the Hindu, the Muslim, all that nonsense that goes on in the world, a circus. We are conditioned by the past, by propaganda. We are the result of all that. Is one aware of it? That's the first question. To be aware of our past, of our conditioning. The word awareness means something very simple. Don't complicate it. Don't go to Burma or attend a monastery. Spend your rest of your life studying what it means to be aware. Practice awareness. That's one of our jargons, a cliche that you have learned recently. Just to be aware of the color of that rose, to be aware of that man who brought the water, to be aware of your neighbor, of the color, the proportions of the whole. To be aware of things happening around you, the squalor, the dirt, the poverty, the ugliness that man has created, the brutality of the things around you. To be aware, to be conscious. Now begins the difficulty. You can be aware. That's fairly simple. To be aware of your environment, you walk down the street with the dirt and you know what's happening in New York City as well, better than I do. To be aware. Now when you are aware, what takes place? Do please follow this. It's very simple. You can do it easily yourself. We are sharing this thing together. I'm not your guru. You understand? I'm sharing. Therefore, we are walking the journey together. I'm not leading you. Thank God you are not my followers. Because you would destroy me and I would destroy you. There is no teacher. There is only you, the teacher, and the disciple. So you become both the observer and the learner. So with one breath, you put away all gurus, all following, all authority in the spiritual sense, not the authority of the policeman, not the authority of law. Because to change law, the law that exists, you must change yourself first. We want to change the outward laws established by you, by your prejudice, by your greed, by your avarice, by your desire to seek security. And you want to change those laws without changing yourself. You want to have peace in the world, no wars, no more Vietnam. But you all have war in your heart. And you're bound to create wars. So, to be aware not only of outward things, of the cloud, of the beauty of a tree, and the swift flight of a bird, and the light on the water. To be aware of that is fairly easy because it doesn't touch you at all. Because there's something outside, far away. But to be aware of oneself, then begins our difficulty. When you are aware of yourself as you are, say, I don't like that, that's ugly, that's beautiful, this I'll keep, that I won't keep. You're choosing. You're rationalizing. You're condemning or justifying, comparing. In that state of comparison, justification, condemnation, your attention is distracted. You're not aware. You are aware of the image which you have brought over from the past, and through that image you are looking at the present and therefore distorting. Is that clear? I'm sorry, I can't ask you if you're clear. It's up to you. I'll repeat it once more in a different way. You know, when you observe a tree or a bird or the light on a cloud, if you have really observed it, immediately you have words for it. You name it. It's a beautiful cloud. You want to write a poem about it if you are inclined that way. You want to tell somebody. The verbalization is a distraction. Because then you are not looking. The verbalization is the image of the cloud which you have seen yesterday, and that image projects between you and the actual cloud. Therefore, you're looking at that cloud through the screen of words, through the screen of knowledge, through the screen of yesterday's memories. So you are not actually totally aware of that thing. Right? So in the same way, to observe what is going on inwardly, to be aware without any movement of choice, there comes our difficulty. Because when you observe through the image of the past, you are bringing about a division in your observation. as the observer and the thing observed. I hope you're doing this as we are talking. That is to share. Don't go home and think about it. Then you are not doing it. You are doing it actually as you are listening. And that is to share. And that's the beauty of sharing. Not take something home in your pocket and then talk about it. That is, to be aware. Aware of what is actually going on within yourself, not according to anybody, but to observe in this choiceless awareness what actually is, which means the mind doesn't condemn, doesn't name it, merely observes. That is, I am aware that I am violent in all its various forms, sexually, in my speech, in my gesture, in my attitude towards life, violent, separative, and violence also, which is the result of my fear. I am aware of my violence. Now, when I am aware of it, I say to myself, I am violent, or I am jealous, or I am greedy. When you name it or look at it through the word is the past. And so when you look at it through the eyes of the past, you are strengthening what you call violence. Because you are relating what is actually taking place to the past. And the past is more or less the firm thing that we have. So when we name violence, anger, we are strengthening the knowledge which we have acquired about anger. Therefore, we are not looking at it anew, afresh. So you are looking at it with the eyes which have been distorted by the past. All right, shall I go on? So the past, as knowledge, is constantly interfering with the present. You have insulted me or praised me. That leaves a mark on the mind. That's the knowledge. And when I meet you, either you are my friend or my enemy, judged by the previous incidents happening. So I'm always meeting life, this extraordinary movement of life, with the knowledge which is the past. Knowledge is the past. And yet knowledge is necessary, right? Otherwise you can't go home from here. Otherwise you won't be able to recognize, if you want to, your husband or your wife. You won't be able to talk, read. You won't be able to work, technologically or otherwise. So you must have tremendous knowledge. And yet you see the danger, how this very knowledge divides as the observer and the observed. I'm sorry for constantly changing words. I can't go on repeating the old stuff. That is, we look at a tree and in that looking at that tree, there is the image, the botanical knowledge of that tree, and the like and the dislike of that tree, or the profit, if you're a lumberman. There is the image of that tree. So the image is the dividing factor between you and the tree. Which means there is a distance between you and the tree, spatial distance, as well as time distance. Now, when there is no image, then you look at the tree in a totally different manner. Then you are not identifying yourself with the tree, because you can't become a tree, that would be too absurd. But the spatial difference, the distance between you and the tree disappears, and you see the tree as you have never seen the tree in your life before. The beauty of the leaf, the curve of the branch, the lightness, the shape, it becomes extraordinarily vital. Now, when you look at yourself, not only in the mirror when you comb your hair, but also when you look at yourself, you look at yourself with the knowledge which you have acquired about yourself. Right? The image you have about yourself. I must be, I must not be. I should be, I should not be. I will be something different in the future. The whole movement of becoming is the outcome of knowledge. Out of that knowledge, you have the image about yourself. And so when you look at yourself, you are looking through the eyes of the image which is the past. Right? And therefore you are not actually looking. Now, to be aware without choice is to observe without the observer, which is the past, the image maker. Bene. Shall I go on? Please listen to this. Because if you know how to listen, you have done everything. You don't have to do a thing. You don't have to make an effort to listen. You don't have to make an effort to change. We'll go into that if we have time later. The necessity of change and how it is, whether it is possible and how it is to be done. But to listen. I don't think we ever listen. Because when we do listen, we are thinking about something else. Or you say, I don't like what he's saying. Or compare what he's saying to something else. Have you ever listened to your wife or your husband? Don't laugh, please. It's a waste of time. Don't do it. And it's a waste of time to clap. Waste of your energy. Please don't do it. Clap if you must when I'm not here. Much better. Have you ever listened? Really listened? Which means the past is absent. That is the past of the wife who has nagged, bullied, or the husband who has dominated, seeking power, all the rest of it, which we are not going to. This terrible thing called marriage, in which all this thing goes on. And to listen without the past. Then you have established a relationship which is totally different. Then your relationship is not between two images. The image of the wife you have or the image which she has about you. The relationship now is between the two images. And therefore it's no relationship at all. I don't know if you have gone into the question of relationship. Because look what is happening in the world. You go to the office with all the problems of the office, with your ambition, the insults that you bear from the boss, the fear. You are separated for I don't know how many hours from the wife or the girl. And the woman and the girl have their own problems, their own miseries, their own confusion, their own ambitions, their pettiness, their shoddiness, and all the rest of it. And you come home, and you go to bed with her, and that's your relationship. You are isolated, and she is isolated, right? And you hope to find some kind of relationship in sex, which you call unity. Love my family. Now all that has to be understood, because to bring about a different society means a different relationship between human beings, between you and your wife and your neighbor. And if your relationship is based on the past, of your memories, of the insults, of the nagging, the past, what the images you have about another, ugly or beautiful or insane, irrational, distorted, then you have no relationship at all. And to be aware of all this. Not just occasionally, but to be aware. So as to not to form an image. I'll show you in a minute, I'll go into it. Having formed the image, how to be free of it, and not to form image. You understand my question? Andiamo. Take a simple fact. You flatter me. That flattery is pleasing. And that leaves a mark on the mind, on the brain cells. And an immediate image is formed that you are my friend, I like you, because you flattered me, you scratched my back. And you insult me. That also has left a mark. And that has left an image. And you're not my friend. This is the fact, isn't it? That this takes place actually every minute of the day. I like you, I don't like you. You are beautiful, you're not. You are intelligent, you're not. This constant image forming. Now, when I am flattered, at that instant, to be totally aware, neither accepting nor rejecting, just to watch it, watch what is happening to my reactions. When you so completely attentively watch, then there is no distortion. Then there is no image forming. You do it now as I'm telling you. You will find out it's a very simple phenomenon. Don't complicate it. To be attentive, to be aware at the moment of insult or flattery. At that moment, there is no choice. Therefore, there is no image forming. Then you meet afresh each time a person. That is real innocence. You know that word innocence means a mind that is incapable of being hurt. Because most people have been hurt from childhood. By the mother, father, by the school, by the teacher, by the police, being hurt. And these hurts are various forms of knowledge. And we carry them till we die. Carry them as memories, which is the past. And time isn't going to resolve them. Time will only strengthen them. But whereas if you are aware of this whole movement of the past as image and knowledge, then your mind doesn't record any of the insults, any of the hurts. Therefore, your relationship with another undergoes a radical revolution. Because we are related with each other. Whether that person lives in Vietnam, or in India, or in Europe, or here, or in China, we are related to each other because we are human beings. And if we isolate ourselves with our images of hurts, pain, pleasures, fears, and the terrible competitive, ambitious drive which is so encouraged in this unfortunate country, then relationship becomes a torture. Then your relationship is not the actual living, beautiful moment, but the past. So, one has to be aware of this total movement of the past, not only at the conscious level, but also at the deeper levels.
The final extract in this episode is from Krishnamurti's 6th talk in Saanen 1967 and is titled, "The Observer is the Past."
So you're asking yourself, who is the observer? Who is living, watching, taking into account all the movement of various forms of fear and also aware of the central fact of fear. That is, who is the observer? Is the observer a dead entity, a static being, because he has accumulated a lot of knowledge, a lot of information about himself? He has learned so much. He's had so many experiences. And these experiences, knowledge, the infinite varieties of loneliness, suffering, all that is the past, the dead thing, the memories. And is that dead thing observing, living with the movement of fear? You're following all this? Is the observer static? Is the observer the past? Or is the observer a living thing? What is your answer? Don't answer me, please. What is your answer? Are you the dead entity that is watching a living thing? Or a living thing watching a living thing? Because in the observer, the two states exist, right? When you observe a tree, you observe with the biological knowledge of that tree, botanical knowledge of that tree, and also you are watching the movement of that tree, which is living. The wind among the leaves, among the branches, how the trunk moves with the wind, which is a living thing. And you are looking at it with the accumulated knowledge about that tree. And that knowledge is a dead thing. Or are you looking without any accumulated knowledge? And therefore you, who are a living thing, are looking at a living thing. Is this fairly clear? That is, the observer is both the past and the living present. Right? But the observer is the past which touches the living present. I wonder if you're getting all this. Vous avez compris? Yeah. Look, sir, let's make it much nearer. Let's forget about the tree. Can you, who are the observer, look at your wife, your friend, boyfriend or girlfriend, and when you observe, are you observing with the memories of yesterday, or observing as though there was no yesterday at all? And to be aware that yesterday is also contaminating the present. So the observer is both the past and the living present. Right? And the past is always overshadowing the present. The past memory, what she said to me, what he said to me. The pleasure, the flattery of yesterday, the insult of yesterday, touches the present and therefore gives it a twist. And so the observer is both the past and the present, and therefore he is half alive and half dead. And with this, with death and life he is looking. With the dead and the living leaf. And is there an observer who is neither? Who is not of the past or of the present in terms of time? Right? Now, let's proceed. There is the observer. The observer is the past. That's fairly clear. The image, the symbol, the idea, the ideologies, and so on. The past. And also, he's actively present, actively examining, looking, observing, listening. That listening, that looking is touched by the past. Obviously. So, the observer is still within the field of time. Right? And when he observes the object, whatever it is, fear, within the field of time, please follow, within the field of time, he is not seeing the totality of fear. Obvious. So the observer is not only of the past, but of the present, in which there are the remembrance of the past. And can that observer go beyond? Which is, he's neither the past nor the present. And therefore, the observer is the observed, which is the living. I wonder if you get about this. Got something or not? I am not sure I am getting it either. Because it's a very serious thing of what we are talking about. Because this is real meditation. And it is very difficult to express in words the nature of that state of mind in which not only there is the past as the observer, but also the observer who is actually observing, listening. And that observing, that seeing, that listening has a chapter, a root in the past. And because that observer who lives in the past and in the present, which is touched by the past, there is a division between the observer and the observed. Are you all going to sleep? And this space, this time interval between the observer and the observed comes to an end only when there is another quality which is not of time at all, which is neither the past nor the present. Then only is the observer the observed, which is not a process of identification with the observed. You know, I was told by someone who knew about these things, who has studied, that in ancient China, before a painter of nature or of human beings, a painter, sat in front of a tree for days, months, years, it doesn't matter, till he was the tree. Not that he became the tree, not that he identified himself with the tree, but he was the tree. You understand? Which means there was no space between the observer and the observed. There was no experience as the observer. Experience the beauty, the movement, the shadow, the depth of a leaf, the quality of color. He was totally the tree. And in that state only he could paint. And that existed also in ancient India. They were not trying to be fashionable, non-objective, non-this and that and all the modern tricks. So we are saying identification with something is fairly easy. And that leads to greater conflict, greater misery, greater loneliness. Most of us identify ourselves with our family, with our husband, with our wife, with our nation. And that has led to great misery, to great wars. But we are talking of something entirely different. And you must understand this, not verbally, in your core, in your heart, right at the root of your being. Then you will see that you will ever, forever, that timelessly be free of fear. And it is only then you will know what love is. So one must understand the observer, not the thing observed that has very little value. Fear has very little value, actually, if you come to think of it. But what has value is how you look at fear, what you do with fear, or what you should not do with fear. The analysis, the seeking of the cause of fear, the everlasting questioning, asking, dreaming, all that, which is the observer. So, the observer has a great deal of value than the thing observed. And as one looks at the observer, which is yourself, yourself is not only of the past, dead memories, remembrances, hopes, guilt, knowledge, and all knowledge is always in the past. When you say, I know, you mean I know you as you were yesterday. I don't know you actually now. And so, yourself is the past, living in the present, touched by the past, overshadowed by the past, and the tomorrow is waiting, which also is part of the observer. All that is within the field of time in the sense as yesterday, today and tomorrow. And that's all we know. And with this state of mind as the observer, we look at fear, at jealousy, at war, at the family, that ugly enclosing entity called the family. And with that we live, that is the observer. And the observer is always trying to solve the problem of the thing which is observed, which is the challenge, which is the new. And therefore is always translating the new in terms of the old. And therefore always everlastingly till he comes to an end in conflict. And one cannot understand intellectually, verbally, argumentatively, through explanations, a state of mind in which the observer has no longer the space between himself and the thing observed, which means the past is no longer interfering. at any time. Only then the observer is the observed. Only then fear totally comes to an end.